Breaking news from Caitlin Collins. Sources saying that President Trump was seething this morning and went on a rant while watching highlights from the intelligence chief's testimony at Capitol Hill yesterday. Also that he singled out Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats. Joining me now is former CIA Director Leon Panetta. Secretary Panetta, thanks for being with us. This certainly isn't the first time the president has singled Coats out. I remember he also did it in Helsinki during his joint press conference with Vladimir Putin. I just want to play that for our viewers.
My people came to me, Dan Coats came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be.
I mean, so he doubted Coats then. He doubts him now very publicly and publicly kind of demeaning him. When Coats actually speaks the truth, the president apparently goes on rants about it or rants about him in the morning. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, this president, although he appointed Dan Coats as Director of National Intelligence, is somebody who, if he doesn't hear what he wants to hear from somebody, is going to get very angry at him. The responsibility of Dan Coats, and for that matter, the intelligence community, is to speak truth to power. That's why they're there. They've got to be objective. They've got to be nonpartisan. They've got to basically tell it as it is, whether that person likes to hear it or not. And obviously, when they speak the truth, as they did yesterday, the president did not want to hear it, and as a result got angry. But the reality is, if you're president of the United States, it's much better if you appreciate the facts as they're presented, rather than trying to create your own view of what the world should be.
It's also, I mean, it's just a kind of an interesting, I don't know if interesting is the right word, I don't even know if strategy is the right word, but behavior by the president that, it's one thing to disagree with an intelligence assessment. It's one thing to push back on it, to say you don't believe the intelligence. It's another thing to publicly demean the person and the persons who are working in the intelligence community. I'm not sure long term what that's about, or if there is a strategy there. It's just, a personal reaction. He gets angry and he tweets about it.
Well, it really is not only unprecedented. I think it's dangerous.
How so?
Because the president of the United States has to protect our national security. In order to do that, he's got to know what our adversaries are up to. He's got to know what they're dealing with. And who provides that information? It's the intelligence community. Why? Because they have sources of information that provide credible intelligence to the President of the United States. Now, look, presidents don't always agree with those assessments. That's been true in the past. But if they disagree, they usually sit down with their intelligence officials and ask them to go back and check their sources and again check their credibility, rather than as this president does, which is to get out there and tweet his objections. That undermines the credibility of our intelligence officials, and it sends exactly the wrong message to our enemies, who now believe that this president operates basically on his own gut sense rather than on the truth. I think that's a message of weakness, and it creates, in my view, a dangerous situation in terms of how this president relates to the rest of the world.
We also just recently learned about this letter from Chuck Schumer to Dan Coats telling him that the president is putting Coats and his colleagues in an untenable position. It's hurting the national interest in the process, as you're saying, and that they have to find a way to make that clear to the president. Is that something that can be made clear to the president by the very people who he's targeting?
This president obviously doesn't have a great deal of experience in government accepting the intelligence that's presented to him. He's been resisting this from the very beginning, not only on Russia, but he has questioned intelligence assessments on everything from Syria to Khashoggi. And therefore, it's really hard to see how this president is going to accept intelligence in a responsible way. Now, he does modify some of his positions based on the intelligence. I mean, he tweeted to get our troops out of Syria. He said ISIS had been defeated. He's beginning to back a little bit away from that position. He's done other things with regards to intelligence assessments that have been provided. For example, on North Korea, he knows he's got a problem with the whole issue of denuclearization when it comes to dealing with North Korea. So I think the best way that you have to deal with this president is for him to bear the consequences of his rejection of their information. And the way he bears the consequences is that those matters then turn sour on him because he's failing to lead this country with regards to national security issues.